Hello, hello. Once again, how lovely to see you all. Thank you. Dr. Saif, lovely, and a very warm welcome to His Excellency, Dr. Maximus. A delight to see you. And of course, Mr. Ali Mirza, my dear friend at this point. We've done many, many conferences together, so it's always a joy. And I'll start with you when we look at, in fact, no, I'm going to save this because I think the news from Jordan, we have to have a look at that and see what is going on in Jordan. What wonderful news. Masdar, coming to, to the rescue, but looking at a wonderful project, and obviously has done great due diligence on this project. And again, looking at the quality of projects that's coming out of Jordan. Bring us up to date with the new Masdar initiative and the investment there on the Big Wind project, and also perhaps a little on perhaps what's going on with Shams Man as well, perhaps.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for hosting us and giving us the opportunity to address this wonderful audience. Thanks to Masdar to begin with for organizing the whole event, and for the United Arab Emirates for always providing us with platforms in order to talk about latest progress with regard to energy and energy sector in Jordan, and in particular the renewable activities. Well, energy in a country like Jordan, which is importing about 97% of its needs, is always going to be a challenge. It has been, and it's going always to be with us, regardless and irrespective of the development in the international, on the international arena, on the prices. This is something that we have to cope with. This is a challenge that we really need to find a kind of innovative solutions in order to overcome. And as such, renewable and sustainable energy in general has been one of the sources based on which we can rely, based on which we can diversify the supply of energy on one hand, but also finding more sustainable solutions for the future, and more affordable, and something that even our industries and services can enhance their competitiveness based on which. Masdar, you put it, not came to rescue, but actually has really contributed to promote the culture of renewable. And we had signed back in 2013 a framework agreement with Masdar actually. So you can imagine the long trip that we have been through in order to conclude a more robust agreement so we can implement some of these projects. Some of this project is going to see and go through very soon with Masdar. A project of about 200 mega is about to be launched very soon in Jordan, and that is only that would be the second project actually that is Masdar is going to implement in Jordan. Overall, in Jordan we have about 1,000 mega of renewable solar and wind that has been either executed or signed. This is simply, and to make it simple, we're talking about 20% of our electricity production is going to be coming from these sustainable resources, wind and solar farms, by 2020. And this is, we're very confident that we're going to achieve this. And I am repeating the panelists when they talk about not to be led by slogans, but by being more pragmatic and realistic. Most of these agreements that we're talking about already signed, either under execution or going to see through. So we're very confident that Jordan is about to diversify and to move and take some bold steps by preparing the business environment, by providing the right incentives, and by the determinations of our leadership in the country that we have to do and to undertake these steps, which I'm glad to report.
Yes. Now, indeed, talking about realism and pragmatism, I think, Mr. Ali Mirza, when we look back at your career with the ministry to, Bahrain, once an oil-producing country, and here we have a country, really resources, just through natural, depletion. So you have had to think of how do you provide energy to your people for a long time and in a different way. But now when it comes to the renewable shift and just in the aftermath of COP21 and the INDCs that were offered, what is your country doing to now make that shift and move, towards a renewable future?
Thank you, Ethne, and good afternoon to all of you. The Kingdom of Bahrain prepared a Vision 2030 in 2008. And the main theme of the vision is to move away on relying on oil only as a source of revenue. Also, it incorporates encouraging the green energy concept. In Bahrain, we are working towards establishing and encouraging investment in renewable energy. You mentioned INDC. Bahrain also submitted its INDC to COP21. And I was at the when we attended the meeting of international we talked about, they were talking
the
that
Asian Energy Forum.
Yeah, that 188 countries submitted INDC, so we were one of them. We are a small island state. Our INDCs were categorized into 4 categories. One of them was energy efficiency to reduce CO2 emissions. One of them was carbon capture. And the third was renewable energy. And that's what also they said that most of the INDCs included renewable energy. The fourth one is the mechanism which we established to make sure the INDCs are implemented. And that is the Sustainability Energy Unit. This Sustainability Energy Unit was approved by the Cabinet in December 2013 to look at renewable energy and energy efficiency. We called it Sustainability Unit. Our INDCs is a combination of the work of the private and the public sector. 4 of our main companies have plans for energy efficiency and carbon capture, like the Bahrain Petroleum Company, Banagas, which is the associated company, GPIC, Tatweer. All of them have programs for energy efficiency and carbon capture. Then we have Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Transport. All of them also have programs. What we need to do through the Sustainability Unit to establish a national energy efficiency program, which is NEAP, which of course they are working on now, and also establish a national plan for renewable energy. So we are moving in that direction, and we hope that the recent changes in the subsidy situation in the Gulf countries will help to encourage the renewable energy, because now the fossil fuel gas, which was subsidized, is no longer subsidized to the same extent. So it means renewable becomes more effective.
Absolutely, yes. And again, the political will is there. You're putting the mechanisms in place. And are you finding with the Sustainable Energy Unit that's building momentum?
Right.
And, people are looking at that. And again, it's about accountability, you were also saying, really measuring it.
See, the INDC was approved by the Cabinet. That shows the political will to make sure that we are committed to these INDCs.
And Your Excellency, Dr. Maximus, when we look at Malaysia and look at the growth in population there, the growth in energy demand too, and just, in light of COP21, what were you looking at when, the country submitted the INDCs?
Yeah, our commitment with respect to the NDCs, as early as COP15, we already made commitment publicly in Copenhagen to go for 40% reduction in carbon intensity per capita. And we reported to the UN last year that we already had 33%, and energy part is about 40% of that. We're
Sorry, what was
into
your achievement last year? By last year, you had how much?
well, out of the 40%, by 2025, we have already achieved 33%.
Well,
Yeah.
congratulations,
Oh, yeah.
indeed. Well done.
So
yes.
when we went to Paris, we upped that. We said, okay, we make a commitment at 45% by 2030, but 35% voluntary, and 10% subject to being able to access to finance from the developed countries and transfer technology as well as capacity building. Okay, our foray into renewable energy. We started very early, actually, among the ASEAN countries. As early as 2006, we already had a biofuel policy. By 2010, we already had the National Renewable Energy Policy, followed by National Renewable Energy Act. And by 2013, we were already roll out our FIT. We picked 1.6% of consumers' bill that consume 300 kilowatt hour on their bill. That collects us about 150 million USD per year, and that has been used to finance up to now approval of 1,000 megawatt of a mix of renewables, solar, biomass, biogas, and so forth. Statistically, today, out of 26,000 megawatt planted, 6,000 megawatt is renewable. That's already 24% of our installed capacity. And at the last November meeting last year of the ASEAN Ministers of Energy, we all pledged to increase our target from 15% by 2020 to 23% by 2025. So Malaysia, actually, we have already surpassed that target, but that includes hydro of all sizes. If I take out 500 megawatt above, not to include as renewable, then we are at about 17% renewable in the overall generation mix. And so there have been a lot of challenges. Moving forward, of course, in order to meet our NDCs, next 5 years, we are going for 1,000 megawatt solar, 250 per year. We are going for net metering, 100 megawatt per year. That's the next 5 years. So that will add another 500. So we are adding 1,500 in the next 5 years in solar PV. So these are some of the efforts, aggressive efforts that we...
Well, indeed, yes. Well, great projects ahead. Good luck to you. That's wonderful to hear. Minister Saif, when you look at we talked earlier this morning about the financials and about securing, good financial instruments for making sure these projects go ahead. How is the government working with the private sector, bringing in some partners, but also are you finding the liquidities in the banks locally, or are you bringing in international partners?
I think Jordan has already, as I've said, a kind of committed to almost 1,000 mega. I think we attracted roughly in Jordan almost 1.6 billion of US dollar equivalent to implement these projects. And most of these projects are undertaken and implemented and executed by the private sector, actually. And what we do, I think, like many other countries, is that we agree on the needs of our electricity system, and then we sign this long-term agreement with the developers. And then it makes it much more easier, actually, to access either the domestic banks or the international financial institutions in order to attract or to secure the funding for this project. We haven't heard that there was real difficulties in terms of securing the funding. The fund is available, it seems, it's accessible, and I think when you provide the right framework, the right contractual terms and agreement that you're signing and you provide the clarity for the terms and conditions based on which you're operating. But then, the minute you sign the purchasing power agreement with the partners, then they move on to undertake the financial closure, which is so far none of the contractual parties have failed to do so. So it's mostly driven by the private sector. And this is, in the Middle East in general, this is transformational in a way, because most of the utilities historically in the region has been undertaken by the government and implemented by the government and managed by the government. So whenever we have difficulties, governments in general has been on the receiving ends of this, and they have to defend themselves, and they have to sort of move on and have that dichotomy of the economic, financial role and the political and social role. While in the cases that we're addressing, these are all new projects undertaken by the private sector and run supposedly in a much more efficient manner.
Indeed, and that liberalization of the market, I mean, it's so important here.
Of
because
course.
the market and Minister Ali Mirza, when you're looking at it, I mean, it's becoming more mature, isn't it? I mean, how are you finding you have some big projects, you have refinery projects, you have a lot on the petrochemicals and all that. I mean, all of them need big financing. So are you adopting more to the public-private partnership model? And again, in terms of financing, is it there for you?
Yes, let's talk first about financing renewable projects.
Yes, well, exactly.
At IRENA, say 2 days ago, they said that the investment in 2015 was $300 billion US, and they were expecting it to increase to $500 billion US in 2020 and to $900 billion by 2030. These are huge sums. And I was interested to hear National Bank of Abu Dhabi and Kuwait were talking about the bank establishing a department or section which deals with financing renewable energy. I think when the banks hear that this is the order of magnitude that's projected to be invested, and most of it will be by the private sector, I'm sure they will also be encouraged to do that. Now, we met with a number of banks, and all of them are very much interested in financing renewable. And the momentum is even more after COP21, because the direction was that we move away from fossil fuel and move into clean energy, which includes renewable energy. So I think the environment, the setup is ready for people to move into the renewables. So the investment is there, and the banks are interested.
And do you find that's been a shift in the past, 5 years, that we've got more interest from the banks?
That's true, because before the cost of renewable was very high. Now again, we heard at IRENA that the cost per unit kilowatt hour was 5.8, which was the lowest in Dubai. But then in Chile, they said it's 4.5. And the wind, of course, Egypt, I think, said 4.1. And Morocco said 3 cents per kilowatt hour. And last night, we were at a reception where His Highness Sheikh Saif was there, Al Nahyan. And one of the gentlemen from Canada, a company, was saying that they will do solar energy for 3 cents per kilowatt hour. Now that's amazing. 3 cents is much cheaper than gas or anything else. So this shows that technology is moving too fast. And this all makes people shift more to renewable, because it's cleaner energy and it meets the environment requirement. And as the His Excellency, the Egyptian minister said, you have to have a mix, because when things go wrong with oil, you have something else to resort to.
Yes, indeed. But 2 cents, more than 2 cents, I mean, that doesn't really sound like a great business prospect if I was about to invest an awful lot of money and think I'm going to
I don't know whether the gentleman is here who was talking to His Highness last night.
What do you think, ministers? Would that be realistic, or probably
said,
one day it
he
will?
said 3 cents. And he said he has
I
done a
think
project.
if what I want just to mention here, regardless of how many cents we're
Yes.
talking about, renewable and green energy production, it's not only an environmentally driven issue, it becomes also a competitive sector to invest in. And we have witnessed the decline and the decrease in the cost of producing kilowatt over time. So both technologies are advancing rapidly. Investment in sort of also storing this, I think, is the breakthrough
Yes,
in
it will
terms
be.
of the
Yeah.
transformation that would take place in this sector. But something is that it's actually a good combination because it's environmentally friendly and it's competitive.
Yes.
And then it makes a lot of sense to dedicate resources and invest and attract investment. And I think after after Paris meeting, I think we will see, and hopefully we'll see that the Green Fund is going to be activated and providing fund for both investment and in researching this and exploring the future of this sector.
Absolutely. And please, if anybody wants to send a question, we do have our little iPads running here. So by all means, please, if you want to get involved in the conversation, or if you want to actually ask a question, we're still good with old-fashioned communication, and you can still just put your hand up and ask a question. The ministers would be delighted to see you. So we can manage both the new technology and the old. Dr. Maximus, when we look at Malaysia and again the diversification of energy right now, you know, Malaysia is a big gas producer as well. And, you know, clean gas, and a lot of work has been done on the gas. But now are we looking at, is there an uptake, a sufficient uptake, and it sounds like there is, in renewable, and is that momentum there? And in terms of cost, I mean, is renewable, are they winning out, or one is as good as the other right now? And you have to keep both going for now.
Yeah, in terms of the input mix at the moment is 46% gas and about 42% coal. So,
Yes, I forgot about
and the
coal,
rest
too.
hydro and renewables. And so I think the opportunities to go beyond the 23% are there, definitely are there. It's a question of our experience in the funding side has not been that easy. We were the first one after Copenhagen set up our own green tech financing scheme, $1 billion USD, whereby we subsidize 2% of the interest rate. They must get a green certificate from the Malaysian Green Tech Corporation, and they can go to the bank and we subsidize 2% of the interest rate. On top of that, up to the total loan, 60% is placed under government guarantee. In spite of that, the financing institutions have not been very kind.
Have not been?
Yeah, they still
We should have
look at
introduced
energy
you to the
financing.
National Bank of Abu Dhabi now.
They still
We
look
should
at
have had
energy
you earlier.
financing as a typical funding thing. And issue and concern about security and sustainability comes into the mind of bankers.
Now, are these the local banks in Malaysia?
Yes, local as well as overseas banks.
Yeah.
Local and overseas bank, especially the small guys. Even say we give our FIT for solar maximum
Right,
1
yes.
megawatt, and they can assign the proceeds to the bank for the first stake. You know, so it's very, very, very secured. You know, and yet when our currency devalued in the last 12 months, the banks were the first one to go slow on disbursement. You know, so I think this is where we could work with successful models in other countries. I talk about large-scale solar. That is not supported by the FIT. We only support FIT up to 1 megawatt. And anything more on that, it will be in blocks of 10 for 250 per year. But you can have up to 30, for instance. And I think there's open financing opportunities there. But the banks, largely, I think, as we've been talking in the assembly of IRENA, it's easier to talk than when you come to actual disbursement.
Yes.
It's still a lot of constraint.
And again, I mean, I think it's something that will probably change. And we're, you know, even for here in Abu Dhabi, this new fund that was put in place, this new department that was put in place, even here in this market, is very new. You know, so
Sure.
I think it's something we're going to take a little time to see. Mr. Mirza, when we look at the oil price demise over the last few years, is there not a danger now that with the oil price coming down so low, that it's back almost in a competitive state, particularly fighting maybe with the renewables? Or has that momentum built up so well in the few years when oil prices were high? It was, in a way, it was almost a gift to the renewable industry, because it made even better business sense at a very high oil price to really look at renewables. And all the oil companies got involved as well. So, I mean, you know, there was that breathing space in a way, but now it's come down so low and not going back up for, I think, a little longer than most people would like. I mean, they'd like to see it, but is that having an impact?
Well, definitely. See, renewable, when oil prices go down, of course, one would say that renewable will not become competitive with the fossil fuel. But on the other hand, the governments during, for example, in the Gulf states, all the governments without exception are looking at redirecting subsidies.
Absolutely.
So they
are you looking at this in Bahrain?
Definitely we are. And I mean, for example, we have modified our subsidy for diesel, kerosene, electricity, gas, and now we're gasoline. So all these, and the same thing is happening in other Gulf states. So it means that before, the fossil fuel, which was subsidized, was competitive with the renewable energy, and renewable energy was more expensive. Now there is a shift. The subsidy makes the gas more expensive compared with renewable. At the same time, there is now, like I said, after COP21, there is an international recognition. I mean, all these heads of states which went there and attended, all of them are saying they want to see a change in the way the climate change is being handled, and they want to see commitment. The fact that the UAE is hosting this huge sustainability week, and we saw the presidents and prime ministers attending, that shows political will to move in that direction.
And indeed from far and wide, coming from Mexico, Nigeria,
President of Mexico, Nigeria, Foreign Minister of France, everybody was there. So it means that there is this other side, that although prices of oil have gone down, there are these balancing factors. And also what I said earlier, the projection now for investment in renewable energy is going up from 300 billion to 500 billion to 900 billion. So it means still people believe that the investment in renewable and the growth of renewable is going to be at a faster pace.
Minister Saif, do you think that, you know, now in this post-COP 21 era, the governments are on board, that sort of peer pressure has been accepted, people are willing to go along with it, and there's a lot more momentum, I think, from the people too. I mean, do you think there's been an education process in place, you know, for the Jordanian consumer, you know, or are they still just looking for the best deal? You know, is that momentum in place, do you think, that won't, despite wherever the oil price goes, it won't make any difference anymore?
I think it's a far-reaching sort of statement to say no matter how the oil prices are going, because people will always tend to compare alternatives of energy for that matter. And of course, when the prices are above $100 per barrel, of course, the dynamics of the markets and how we're operating is definitely different from when the prices is in the range of $30 or $40. So let's, again, be realistic that it has an influence, definitely. But on the other track, we cannot deny that there is a momentum that has been built for relying more on renewable and on sort of the concept of green economy and sustainable development is something that there is a growing awareness at countries level and at governments level that something needs to be done. Not anymore this can be ignored. I think there has been a time when that was a kind of a propaganda or a media slogan, but now it's quite realistic. And I think there is this competition and there is this comparison because also producing power from renewable sources is providing solutions for many countries. Let's not think about the rich countries, but also think about the poor countries at that level. You know, poor countries not necessarily having the proper infrastructure, not necessarily having an integrated system for their electricity system or so. Now you can provide a kind of individuals, separate solutions to deal. We have yesterday witnessed some solutions, for example, in the Zayed's price.
Unbelievable. I mean, some incredible,
This is
small
exactly
scale,
where now this available technology, not only it's a technology that are sort of a money machine for those who, for the investors, for the multi-billion industries, but it provides solutions for also poor and rural areas, rural communities.
And also makes them almost self-sufficient in a sense too.
And this is where I think the utilities as we know it, the traditional, conventional system for electricity, I think is going to change over the next few years. And it's going to be changed for probably less integrated system in a way, but would provide solutions at really different layers and different levels in societies. And I just want to add something, since this conference is also has both water and energy.
Yes, of course.
I want just to talk about that. Like in Jordan now, we're trying to team up with also the water people in the Ministry of Water, and trying also to provide solution for those areas which we cannot reach using the conventional power. And this is something enormous. This is something very important for these rural communities, which has been somehow abandoned in many countries. And, because of the cost associated with building the proper infrastructure, has been sort of marginalized or sided, put on a side for many years. Now, these new technologies are really providing solutions, sustainable solutions, but also with a human touch in a way where you can really have a more integrated sort of societies that are benefiting from these breakthroughs in technology.
Indeed, and you can see that there it's benefiting, right across the board for the children, for the health, for drinking water, for light, for education. I mean, it's all of that. Mr. Mirza, you want to come in on this, please?
I just want to add to what His Excellency Mr. Saif said, that the countries who are not blessed with oil and gas, they have no oil and gas to resort to.
Right.
So, and if they want to provide sort of power to their community, they have to go to something. And renewable now, with the prices, costs coming down, is the right avenue to go. So that's why there will be growth in renewable in future, in my view as well. That in addition to the producing countries, which are also using renewable as a supplementary, the countries who don't have oil and gas will use it as a main source of generation of power.
Dr. Maximus, when you look at the growth of urbanization, and particularly too in KL and or in Malaysia, I mean, in KL, such a huge city and growing non-stop. How are you managing in terms of building codes, retrofitting? I mean, I think it's easy now to have new codes, and we're going to talk about this very topic later in the afternoon, in place for cities, particularly for new buildings. But how do you go about retrofitting a busy, big city like the size of KL or something like that?
Yeah, we are very conscious of that, but some very innovative models have been coming in. For instance, now, in building new roads, they, instead of building entirely new one, they put it on top of the previous highways. One was just approved about 3 months ago, and they want to put solar 6 kilometers on top of the, to make a green highway, on top of the new highway to be built on top. So these are some of the challenges managing the impacts of urbanization, and try to reduce as much disturbance to the system. And so this some of the things that we have been talking about. In terms of dealing with the green spirit, we set up a green foundation to deal with young people because we want to push energy efficiency. And there are a lot of savings to come from that, and to go to the young people and talk more about green lifestyle and so forth. I think that is important in order to capture the whole revolution, the movement of going renewables. As I said earlier, 42% on coal at the moment. We import nearly 98% of coal. So opportunities to replace that with renewables, especially for the aging power plants, we are looking at that as a matter of strategy. And we have stressed in our NDCs that will focus on CO2 and methane. The oil palm plantation does generate a big amount of methane from the palm oil effluent. And we have about 200 other mills over the country. We want to harvest those gas, methane, and use refining and fire our IPPs, our power plants. So we'll be quite biased in the next 5 years towards going for biogas using methane, but we need to bring the grid as near as where all these plants are, these oil palm mills, which are dispersed throughout the country. But these are some of the initiatives we're trying to do to deal with urbanization and so forth.
Now, of course, a lot of what's happening in the renewable space too is happening very quickly, and technology is shifting and changing and getting better, we would hope, all the time. I have a question here talking to say specifically for the ministries. Are governments willing and able to take a portion of the technology risk that's inherent in the market? And will large long-term projects be able to use unproven technology? So, I mean, the banks are a little scared when it comes to anything that's unproven. You know, how are you embracing new technology that, you know, there may be a bit of a risk to, or how do you become sort of risk adverse on that? Well, because it is disruptive technology and it's changing very, very quickly.
Of course, it is changing. It's true that the technology is rapidly changing. Actually, I would take one step back and talk about the technology that we witness in our handsets and in the computers and in the laptops, actually. Had we stuck to one version of this technology, we would have never actually changed our handsets, because every 6 months or 1 year there was a time when this technology was changing and a much more efficient way of introducing this technology. I think more or less I compare the breakthroughs in the technology in terms of both renewable and this new solution that have been provided to us to that also investment in that area. Of course, now the main challenge in the renewable, I believe, is how to store this technology, and you can use it 24/7, so it's part of your base load. Otherwise, you will always be developing the renewable project, quote unquote, but along with that, you need to have your system stand by. So somehow it's additional cost in the system. Had we the right breakthrough in terms of developing how to store this technology is enormous. And this is, for example, in Jordan, where we're going now with some initiative, some models where we can have a hybrid system where we really can generate renewable and store it and use it. And this is, I think, where we need to move and to advance at that level. Now, of course, there is a risk. And, you know, as long as the banks are trying to de-risk their project, I think governments has all the right also to de-risk, because it's somehow it is long-term liability on governments' budgets. And we have to attend to that and to be aware that is somehow embedded and built in the PPP or the purchasing power agreement that we're signing with those who are going to provide us at certain prices, no matter how the technology. If they want to change in the middle of the game or the middle of, you know, their contracts, a kind of technology to make it more efficient, that's something that definitely we could look into and can be worked out. But there has to be, because at the same time, most of the investors, most of the banks actually asking for a more stable, long-term commitment from the government.
Yes, yes.
So when you provide that, I think there is somehow a fair game in risk sharing at that level. Had they want to change half of their project in the middle, if they're a breakthrough in technologies, that's absolutely legitimate. But this is the only way that I can think of now, is that where you can attract those investors, base them, and let them move and start working at that level.
And yes, and so you agree that price, and if they want to change mid-project in a way,
if they want to reduce the price in the middle of
if they want to reduce
we
it.
wouldn't object to that, absolutely.
Yes, that one you'll embrace. Is your country, and indeed to Mr. Mirza too, but to you first, Minister Naif, are you doing anything in terms of research and development now to like move this forward? Because we're looking at, I mean, look here what's happening in the UAE. You know, there's so much research and development in the renewable space. Is this something that you're looking at
In Jordan, you
in
mean?
Jordan?
Well, I must admit that Jordan is a small country, and we are promoting. We have some national citizens that are actually looking into this, attached to some either universities or have the National Energy institution that is part of the Royal Scientific Society in Jordan. And they are looking into that. But whether that breakthrough will come through this, I think it's private. This is led by the private sector.
Yeah.
And we know for sure that the big private entrepreneurs are the ones that are really investing and working on that. We're very much aware of what they are doing. Our technical teams are in direct contact with, you know, the latest cutting-edge technology at that level. I believe personally that this breakthrough will happen, and the cost of the storage, as compared to the next 5 years, definitely is going to be much less than what we're witnessing now. And this is where, again, I think the whole dynamics of this renewable business is going to change when there is a proven technology at that level.
And in terms of research development in Bahrain, and we're going to have to wrap it here, and I'll come to you on the same issue to close it up. Is there enough being invested, and are you, you know, as a government working with your partners to look in this area?
Maybe, Anthony, before that, I visited the city of Masdar 2 days ago, and they showed us they have an institute which have young boys and girls working on new technology research, and they have already patented a number of discoveries they have made which are new. And this is an area which I think we will be encouraging in Bahrain, where we don't only rely on technology being provided by technology providers, but we become knowledgeable in the technology itself and help to create new things in the area, in the region. That is the type of research we need.
Can I just comment
Please, yes.
on this before, because I might not have the chance again. In our framework agreement with Masdar, actually, there is a component about the technical know-how and technical transfer and training and giving some scholarships to Masdar Institute. And I think this is the kind of also arrangement that we can have with this big private enterprises when they want to invest in a country. This is the way where you really can sort of transfer knowledge and know-how. This has been common in the Gulf countries through their historically through the development of the oil field. But this is again something that definitely can be done at that level.
And that transfer of knowledge, an easy one to do too.
Yeah.
It should. Please, I'm going to leave the last word with you, Dr. Maximus.
Yeah. I think in the renewables sector, the technologies are now readily available, and costs have really gone down drastically, especially in solar and wind.
Yes.
But the biogas and the biomass sector has not moved as fast as in the solar sector. And of course, this issue on use of these technologies, risk attached to that. Our regulator, for instance, the Energy Commission, had always included the terminology. Technology must be proven and in operation. Then that catches a bit of a problem with local R&D, because they have not been maybe in operation. They may have developed. So we have told our own Energy Commission to be sensitive to this. Otherwise, both the utility, the uptaker will say, you're putting new thing, no. proven and in operation. And so we've been trying to get over that, especially for biogas, biomass technology, which is still largely European or foreign imported. And they're still very lumpy, nothing for very small 1 or 2 megawatt. There still comes in the huge 5 to 10 megawatts. So this has been a real challenge for those of us who want to do renewables but want to diversify the types of renewable rather than just depending on solar. So
Of
these are
course, yeah. I
challenges.
mean, it does. It's about the renewable and also that sustainability, because ultimately it doesn't just have to be solar. We have wind. We have like the very many forms. And unfortunately, we have to wrap this up here, or my panel and my guests won't be sustainable because it is lunchtime. So we do have to wrap this up. I'm sorry. Did you have a question? We'll have to hold it. Forgive me. I wasn't paying attention there. We missed a few, but time has run away with us. And gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time. We're really very honored to have you here, and great to know what you as leaders in the ministries are doing. The country's depending on you guys to keep it going strong. So hopefully we'll see more and more interesting projects in the next few years. So good luck to you all. Thank you so much. And again, thank you.